Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of The Void, in association with Link Sports. Link, share, play. On today's show, Darius Knight, Gareth Herbert, Darren Blake, Ryan Jenkins, Terence Young, and yours truly, Sky Andrew.
Yeah.
Welcome to another edition of The Void in association with Link Sports. Darius always starts laughing when he's
It's amazing, that's why. I love it.
Darius puts his head down, Blakey puts a big grin on his face. Link Sport, that's me.
Blakey is Link Sport.
Right, okay, let's go. Welcome to another edition of The Void in association with Link Sport. Link, share, play. On today's show, Darius Knight, Gareth Herbert, Ryan Jenkins, Terence Cecil Young, and Darren Blake. This week, we're talking coaching. We're talking all aspects of coaching. So let's get off with, should young players have coaches talking to them on the side of the court? Let's go to Gareth Herbert first. Gareth, should coaching be allowed from, coaches on the side telling young players what to do, or should they just leave the players to sort it out for themselves?
Yeah, I think there's two ways you can go about it. You can either not coach at all when a match is happening at all, even in between sets, or only in between sets. So prior to the match, in between sets, or after is an option. Just from a sort of a coaching perspective, I'm quite big on empowerment of the players. So one of the big differences between being a very good player and an average player is the decision making. So if the coach is always telling you what to do, actually you're telling the player what to do, and they're not having that decision for themselves. So I think the player needs to learn to make those decisions. And if you're shouting out at the sidelines all the time, actually it's enhancing their learning, or it's sort of detrimental to their learning. So I sit on the side that says either no coaching at all, or maybe just in between the sets, or prior or after.
Ryan Jenkins, what's your view on this?
I think I've said in the previous one that I don't think there should be any coaching as there is in tennis, where the coach is allowed to coach beforehand, give the good messages and reinforce the tactics, and then speak to them afterwards. Because if you're in like a 4-star, and you've got 10 players, you're buzzing around from table to table, it's impossible really to coach one player right through the tournament. So, but it's not about the coach anyway, it's about the player. The player is getting too much information. The coach is telling the player what to do all the time, where to serve, where to place the ball. So, yeah, Gareth's right. The player's not thinking for themselves at a young age. And you've got leadership, ownership, and then that needs to transfer to the ownership of the player, needs to be above the leadership, which the coach gives at the start of their career. So, yeah, it's got to be a little bit of coach-led at the beginning in the training hall, yeah. And then when you transfer it to matches, it's got to be about the player, the ownership of the player making the right decisions.
Darius Knight, do coaches actually make any difference when you're playing and they're on the side shouting out stuff to you?
I think it depends where you are in your career. Obviously, I think in the hall it's a must. I think in the tournament kind of thing, sometimes that coach that has experience, has played as well, can see things that you can't see. Because there's loads of times when we're all nervous. I think Jenkins talks about him playing the Commonwealth Games when he was with Gareth in the final, 9-5 up. At that point, and then you lose, you start to lose, and you need a coach to say, "Look, guys, calm down, change the game. Do something in a timer." Sometimes you can't see it, so I think it's quite difficult to say when and where. But obviously, as a young kid, you don't know what's going on. Your emotions are very, very high. I remember me playing, and I was a decent player. Also depends on what level you're playing at. If you're playing internationally, I think absolutely you need a coach. If you're playing in England kind of thing, it just depends on where you are. You got to know your player inside out. So as much as I think I've been a bit vocal about on the internet, I just think that, like, for me, for some parents, if you're coaching a kid and he's losing, then you know that you can break the game up, call a timeout, tie his shoelaces, change a shirt. The other kid then starts going, "Oh, it's not fair. What's he doing?" And then you're back in the game. So if you watch Dmitry Avcharov, sometimes when he's losing, he's getting destroyed at 2-0 down. He takes his shirt off. He damages his bat. He does all kind of things to get back into the match just to change that momentum. And I think it's important to have
the coach doing that or him.
I mean, that's him doing that from his experience. But obviously, I think he's such a good player. He's learned that. Another example is that when you're young and a junior, if you have a coach and you're winning the nationals, you don't have a coach, you're not winning nationals, you're going to the European Youth, you're then getting further opportunities and getting selected further. Do you, when you play internationally, do you say, oh, well, I'm selecting these 5 players because this guy can play without a coach? You don't do that. So I think, you go to some countries like Romania, Russia, it's a bit intense. Of course, things have changed and players need to think for themselves. But I think it's important to have a coach at the international level until you and your player have a system, When I played with Alan Cook, I loved him coaching me because he was able to tell me 1 or 2 things, and I felt that we was in this journey together. Therefore, sometimes when I was coached with Jai, it was like a system overload. But he didn't understand me. And I think obviously as a coach, it varies that you've got to understand the player and what they want. So, of course, if you play in the, is it now like the England kind of top 12, you don't have a coach, you're number 1, you finish 5th. Doesn't mean that they're not going to select you. If you have a coach and, you've got Lugi Liang in your corner, you're going to take that. You've got Gareth Herbert in your corner, you're going to take that. You've got Jenkins in your corner, you're going to go, absolutely, yes, that's your plus to have, And when Ryan Tussauds got 9 or do a short, heavy batsman serve, you believe that more. Sometimes, how many times have you played at 9 or where you don't know what to do? But the coach telling you that in the future, then okay, this works at this time. Then you're able to see things more.
You will know what to do if you play without a coach all the time. You'll find ways around those problems that you've just alluded to. You'll know, because obviously it's the same for your opponent. They haven't got a coach as well. So you find out then through a number of months and years what to do at 9-all in the 7th. You'll find a way. Because
yeah, but I agree with you, Ryan. But I think there's still so many times where, as a senior, you don't know, you've seen sometimes like Timo was gone for a long serve against Marlon and then Marlon's just smashed it past him or Marlon's been a step ahead. Obviously, that's not just coaching. I know that until now they allowed coaching in between the points. Before they didn't allow that. So why are we going backwards if the sport is allowing you to coach in between the points now? And before, coaches got red cards and got kicked off European Youth Finals and senior European World Championships. So, I don't know, now that coaches are being allowed to coach. I mean,
there's no yellows and reds now because you can coach during the match. But that's a different point, obviously. But it's one to bring up in this discussion somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, not that I don't know what I'm saying is 100% right, but I just think that for some parents and players, it's life changing having a coach helping you to win, to get further, to be in the England team, than to it's like you can be number 1 with a coach and you can be number 6 without that. But obviously these guys are not even sure where they're going to end up in their career. Of course, if you're talking 19, 21, 20, 23, where you're professionally representing England, yes, you need to learn to play without one. You need to learn to add things up. But at such a young age, you're asking a lot from the players, which they don't even know what boxes they're putting on,
Jan, did you hear what Darius Knight said? He said that he loved being coached by Alan Cook from the side.
Oh, you're comfy there, mate.
What do you think about coaching from the side, Terence Young?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's different individually. I think some people are more capable of thinking and taking a step back during a match and looking, being able to work out. But I think a lot of what Ryan says, I think, is right in the sense that you have to allow the younger players, when they're growing up and playing, to learn and be able to work out the issues and the problems and the strategy to winning a game without having someone in the corner talking to you or saying things to you. Because if I'm being completely honest, a lot of the time, the coaches can be more of a hindrance because you might have an idea of how you want to play or what you want to do. And even as an experienced player, someone might say something after a set or the second set, and it's completely going against what you actually think. Now, and then you're in the situation, you're in 2 minds, so the way that you think you're going to play, someone's turned around and said, try that, or do this. And then you don't do either right because you're stuck in between.
The independent thinkers will bat off the feedback they get. Because you get feedback from a load of different ways, right? You get from your club coaches, your international coaches.
It can confuse
and you know which stuff to take on board. You know which stuff to just bat away. And a good independent thinker can do that.
in the hall, you definitely need coaches to help you with technique and what you're doing on. But once you've drilled that hours and hours of working in the hall, then obviously you need to put that into a game. And if you've constantly got someone telling you what to do, talking throughout the whole game, that's outrageous.
Yeah, that's
being able to coach with it, because
that's
ridiculous.
that's just stupid. I didn't even know that. I mean, obviously I've been out of the game for a long time. But
what you find now, right? Like the Romanians and Russians, they're over
intense.
the barrier. They shouting all the time, constantly shouting, and we can't understand because
that makes the game a farce. If you ask me.
We're at a disadvantage because we're speaking English, and Americans will and Australians will in English, and they're speaking Russian or Romanian, German. They're at the advantage straight away because they can understand us. We can't understand them.
I just think that you need to allow players to work out for themselves what the issues are. I don't disagree with at half time or having maybe one time in a match where you can maybe take a time out and say and go and speak to your coach. That might be an idea.
About in between sets still.
Yeah. I mean, in between sets, I wouldn't say no to it, but I do think that there needs to be a change in things, and I think maybe starting from grassroots and letting people and young kids learn for themselves, and once the game's finished, then speaking to them and having a chat and saying, look, this is where I think you've gone wrong. This is the kind of what we need to work on in the practice hall and whatever.
Yeah.
I think it just gives you a better chance of fully understanding when it's in a game. You've got too much going on in your head anyway. With someone else whispering in your ear and talking in it, sometimes it just makes it more of an issue.
A young player needs to know what their options are, don't they? So I was in a training hall today. So you have someone who serves long, and the opponent pushes the ball. Well, it's a given that they should topspin the ball. But rather than saying, so you can say as a coach, you can say you should topspin that ball because it's long. Yeah, that's what we should do. But the next step is they then topspin the ball. It's a bit high, and the other person counter loops it. Then it's more making them understand what other options there were. So I would say, okay, it's good that you topspin the ball, but what options do you have? Well, I could have spun it lower. That's really good. Anything else? I could have went to the middle. Yeah, that's really good. Could have went to the backhand. Oh, brilliant. Okay, go on. You play the next point, and they can learn from that because that's where it's such an important part of the game. That player needs to know they have to topspin a half long or long serve. However, there's plenty of options out there, and you've got to be able to adapt depending on the player that you're playing against. So in training,
do you know what? One thing that I did learn, and I learned it later on in my career. I didn't have a particularly long career, but later on in my career, I think it was through Denmark actually, maybe Peter Sarts and Michael Mays. What I noticed when Mays was practicing, and he was focusing a lot on the placement of the ball. Do you know where we talk about technique and just topping and getting as many? He was actually practicing putting it in places that was more awkward for me to block or for me to play the shot. So it was him focusing on it, just making it as difficult for me. I know obviously we have different things, like obviously we were trying to practice and work on our backhand or a forehand or whatever it may be, and we want consistency. But the placement of the shots is something that I don't think I ever really discussed with coaches, even at the highest level.
To do against the opponent, for sure.
Sorry, say that again.
Let's listen in depth to Darren because everyone else has a say on this subject. Darren, what's your view?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with the guys. I think we're not trying to say that coaching isn't key, because coaching, a bit like Terry said, in the hall is key. Working on technique, putting the hours in, teaching them how to play, teaching them how to develop that technique. I just think when you get to matches, you can only learn from your mistakes and working out for yourself a lot of the time. And like the guy said, if you've got someone in your ear pretty much telling you what to do next, what type of serve to do, where to put the ball, you just become robotic. And you can win a game, but you haven't necessarily worked it out for yourself. And it's very similar to most sports, really. You see it in football a lot. You see it in football a lot in matches where the coach on the sideline will pretty much drill the team and pretty much tell them where to play the ball, tell them what to do with it. and the kids are becoming robots. They don't work it out for themselves. While the kid who's prepared to try and, I don't know, dribble out with the ball from the box when they're 7, 8, they make that mistake a couple of times, but then they won't do it again because of what they've done wrong, you know, and they've worked that out for themselves. So it's a balance between letting them express themselves and teaching them. But I don't see any reason why you shouldn't let them play the match themselves. And then the coach literally talks to them before the match. They talk to them after the match. And then what difference does it make to their development to tell them every point in between what they should be doing, what type of service they should be doing, you know? And it's that person against the other person, isn't it? You know, so they should be able to work it out and work it out in that game.
Level playing field, then, isn't it? That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, I mean, if I didn't realise either about that, you can talk between every point, but for me, that's it's crazy. Point. Yeah, it's
coaching is interesting in that. I don't know if you boys saw the Man City game when Vincent Kompany scored that screamer. And when he was going forward with the ball, all the coaches had their hands over their eyes, and the players were like, "Don't shoot." There's an element of coaching where it can restrict someone from, you know, showing what they can do. I'm looking for the right express themselves.
Expressing themselves.
That's what I'm looking for. So, isn't coaching about understanding someone's character, understanding their talent, and just helping that individual express themselves as to what their characteristics are?
Yeah, exactly. It's having the confidence to allow your player to express them, allowing your player to come up with things themselves without feeling like you're making yourself redundant as a coach. A lot of coaches want to feel like they're making a difference by telling them what to do. And if they don't turn up to a game and that player loses, then the parents think, oh, it's because your coach wasn't there. And they feel that makes them important and needed. But really, it should be about them developing them in the training hall and understanding how to play in matches. That's the importance of a coach, really, for sure, for me.
Yeah, when I went through my level 4, we were told about developing the athletes so you become redundant, so they become self-sufficient. And then obviously, yeah, you're not coaching yourself out of a job, but then you come back lower and start that process again, taking up to a level where they can just be self-sufficient and coach themselves. And you know,
tell us about this level 4. What is this level 4, Ryan?
Yeah, the level 4 UKCC is all about ownership for the player. You know, yes, everyone needs guidance and an arm around their shoulder to say, you know, you're not thinking about this, or you've lost track of what you were doing and your best attributes, and yeah, you got to work on your weaknesses and build yourself. But it is all about making yourself redundant, so your athletes become self-sufficient, independent thinkers, and you know that's obviously the philosophy that coaching is heading in at the top of the game. Yeah, I was just thinking. Sorry, go on.
People are always interested in these coaching manuals. You see, because at the end of the day, coaching is very difficult if it's done in the right way. And in the right way is developing an individual's talent. So it's always interesting to hear what these manuals say. Like you go on these courses. Are these courses the right type of courses to help develop players?
I think level 4 is because you're in a room with all different other sports. So you've got rugby league there, you've got hockey there, and all these other sports. So you're learning off different environments. And even if you look at someone like Klopp coming into Liverpool, I'm sure he's made his players independent thinkers. Yes, there's team tactics and there's team ethos, but it's like, right, you express yourself there, you do this, and there's got to be some order in what they're trying to do. But it seems like the players are expressing themselves. But if you go to the difference of rugby and football, you got the manager on the side barking orders all the time. Rugby, the coaches are up in a box, out of the way. And I was just thinking as everyone was talking, how many sports are there breaks where people can coach? I can't think of too many. Boxing, every 3 minutes, yeah, the coach comes in and says some things. Football, there's somebody on the side constantly. Any other sports where there's coaching quite often? I don't know if there is. You know, swimming there's no. Gymnastics is no.
In reality, football, there's only so much they can get.
Yeah, they can't say a lot. It's quite noisy in it. But gymnastics, they do their stuff without the coach, before and after. Swimming, the same. Hockey is half time. And
cricket, similar.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many sports where there's so much coach activity. Tennis,
no, exactly. Coaching. Yeah. The one challenge as well, Sky, with the level coaching, it's on paper, it always sounds good. It's the same with the FA level coaching. You know, they teach you to let the player think for themselves, ask questions rather than tell them what to do. And I've seen guys go on level coaching alongside me, and then you see them 3 weeks later on the side of the pitch, and they're doing the exact opposite of what they got taught, because people can't help themselves. When it comes to winning and the ego and the pressure, you go back to your natural personality, and then the pressure gets in, you start shouting at them, you start telling them what they've done wrong, and you start having a go at them.
Yeah.
So
the first 2 months going through that level 4, I reverted back to my old style because I was getting paid. I thought I had to say a lot. I'm getting paid, the coach. I better say as much as I can and give as much information to the players as I can because I'm getting paid for this. And then obviously over time I've learned to say sometimes less is more. But it's tough,
It's hard because you're going to always get some parents who love a coach who's telling the kids all the time what to do. So you're here. I mean, I've managed football teams, and I've seen our coach now is coming as UEFA B coach to the top coach, UEFA A coach to the top coach. But you've got half the parents still moaning because they don't say enough, and then other ones so you can't win. Pretty much, everyone's got an opinion.
Most of the time,
parents always use the coaches a lot of times the scapegoat.
Yeah.
As an excuse, they do get a lot of stick, and that's in all sports, football especially.
It's definitely the environment you've got to create as a top level coach. The environment, no compromise on standards, making sure that everyone's going to the ugly zone where they're training, really hard all the time. That there's the levels are not dropping, and that's the sort of environment the coach creates rather than just coaching all the time.
Let's go back to Gareth Herbert, who coaches every day. So, Gareth, the question to ask is, how important is what a coach says to a player before the performance? So, before a match, do we see a lot of coaches saying the same things? Are there coaches that really give bespoke coaching to individuals? So, how important is the coaching before the performance? And is there enough bespoke coaching?
I'd like to think it's very important before a match, and I would like to think that there is a lot of bespoke coaching. It's what that bespoke coaching looks like from one coach to another. Yeah. So for example, when I'm coaching, bespoke coaching would be about that player and what their strengths are, more importantly than their weaknesses. Yeah. What makes them feel positive. What I might say to them that will inspire them and motivate them to have a good performance. So it's all about them. Obviously, knowing the opponent's important, but in terms of that individual, it's just knowing that. So I think it is important, and I think that it's just all the work is hopefully has already been done in the training hall. Because for me, a lot of people don't realise there's actually quite a big correlation between technical coaching and tactical. The better you are technically, you got more options. Yeah. So if you've got a very strong forehand and not so good backhand, but actually it's a really good tactic to spin down the line with your backhand, you could be limited. Yeah. So that work needs to be done in the training hall. I'm with the guys that I'm a believer that a lot of it should be done beforehand. I do like the in between the sets. I think that is good because a bit of a timeout. It's a good idea because it allows the player to refocus if they're struggling, but also you can tell them about all the good things they've done as well. So you can reinforce all the positive things and just keep them calm. So I think that's good. I think what we got remember though is these rules that are coming in about coaching from the sidelines. In 20 years from now, that'll be normal. So that will just be seen as normal. It's happened for all this time. We've come from a generation where it's very odd to do that. We'd never used to do it. So for us, it's a strange change. But we've got to remember that in 20 years' time, we're talking to a player who's maybe 30 years old. They might find it strange that we only coached in between the sets. Yeah. So I think it's a matter of adapting to it, and also it is playing within the rules. It just seems a bit out there to us because it's something that we're not used to. But I think also going back to sort of the parents and what they think as well.
We're going to that's in a minute, Gareth.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that's right.
Darius Knight, has there been a situation where you benefited from a coach talking to you before a performance, and thinking that helps?
Not really, but I think at one stage of my career, I had like a psychologist helping me a lot because I think I used to have a lot of clashes with coaches just because of how I thought and what I wanted to do. So at times I was not putting matches, I was disciplined because I wanted to do things in a different way. So the psychologist that I had, I remember Steen Hansen got him and actually helped me to play better. And he kind of like followed me around, just checking like, what did this guy get up to in between his matches so that he could focus.
But what tell you before you played a match?
Pardon?
Example.
So I might be talking to other people, gluing up my bat, and I'd be just getting distracted and just turn up to the table last minute. So just someone to help me get like a system and a routine, which sometimes I think, now we have sports science and psychology, like these things are kind of like, a lot of players have their own routine, how they warm up. And I don't think you learn that from your coach. You learn that from just a bit of sports psychology. How do you get yourself in the gear? Is it playing M&M, lose yourself? What does it, what routine do you have that gets you ready for the match? And I think, I would like at one point in my career, I would never use my reverse serve because I some weirdly thought it was too easy to win with that serve, or I would just use it when I was in trouble. And then when I try to use it when I got in trouble, it might go half long, it might go long, and I couldn't execute it. So it's more like just playing a bit smarter, being cool, calm, almost. What I learned massively was that when we practice to get loads of balls on the table. But in a match, I wanted to win easily. Serve, firm, or win. I wanted it to be easy. Well, actually, when it was 2-1 down, this is when it starts. This is when all the hard practice that you do now comes into play. Now you've got to battle. Now you've got to put in a hook. Now you've got to do your third serves, your third level serves. And then so like that's what my coach couldn't teach me that because I felt like he couldn't communicate with me at the time as good. I should almost know his name is Jai because just the English.
Would use that terminology because what you'll find is a lot of coaches don't necessarily use the same terminology as what players would use. So would a coach say to you, you've got to use your hook more, you've got to fade, you've got to job block? Would you ever have a coach saying that to you?
No, but I mean, towards the end, I keep mentioning Alan Cook because, I had a lot of my good wins with Alan Cook. And he just understood, he understood me. He said, come on, you little whippersnapper, let's work, let's hunt that ball down. And sometimes that's what I needed because I wanted to play pretty phase hooks and just win easily. But actually, the game is not like that. You've got to start playing when you're 2-0 down. When you're 2-0 up, you lose 2 sets. How do you recompose and get there? And obviously, having a coach that understands that kind of battle kind of thing, which for me in my career, in my later career, in like 21-22 with Alan Cook, it was great. I remember playing European Championships last 64, last 32. I beat a guy called Cowley, 4-3, 12-10 in the 7th. I think if I was playing with any other coach, I would have lost. But with him, I don't know. I think I ran a lap around the hall. I'd never done any of that. That was unusual behavior for me. Running around showing that I wanted to win.
You think you would have lost without him?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Cowley, is that the one from Singapore, Herbie?
No, from Ukraine now. He came to
Why would you have lost? Why would you have lost, Darius?
Because something for me is that if I never started good,
he's not the one that was played for Singapore before.
Yeah, he's really good now. He's probably like, 20, 25 in the world?
Well, he didn't play for Singapore. He came to England. He played for Grove, and then he went to Nottingham. Then he went to Ukraine. It was really good. But I mean, what I mean is that the point I'm trying to make out is that some coaches make you believe that it's a fight, it's a journey, rather than some coaches want you to win 3-0, 4-0 easily, and because you train hard. Rather, the game is not like that. How many times have you been 2-1, 5-1 up and lose? How many times have you been 2-1, 5-1 up and down and you win because of a timeout? And that's not necessarily because of you. That's because sometimes the coach is helping you change that game as well. When someone misses a smash and you're thinking, hang on a minute, shit, I can do this. And the coach is going, come on. Sometimes just that you turn to the court, you need that come on is enough to just go, okay, I'm going to battle. I'm going to put in a few backhands and block a few and fish a few. Do you know what I mean? And I think sometimes having an experienced player and coach, they've been in that situation 1,000 times before. That's why I say that having a coach in your corner is important because when you're in the England junior team, if you've got a parent coaching you, you've got, an ex-player like Gareth Herbert saying, give him a kicker, he's talking from that 1,000 times of experience, what to do. Sometimes you can't see. Sometimes I've been like, what do I do? Paul, what do I do? I can't understand, Jai. Paul, what do I do? In doubles, you talk to your partner all the time. Serve short, no, I'm not feeling that. Do a float serve. That's why I think for me, coaching was important because, I remember playing without Carl Preen. He said to me that, Darius, when you're playing against a bad player, put the ball on the table. You're playing against a good player and it's close, you've got to go for it because, they're thinking that you're going to go safe and when you go aggressive, you're going to win. So those are the things that I learned from other good players / coaches.
We're all sitting here thinking, where is the old Darius? Because this Darius is articulate, speaking well, inspirational.
He's been on the counselling couch. He's been on the Skylet Andrew counselling couch, isn't he?
I think I get 100% what Darius says because there's a couple of things. As a player, I know it shouldn't make a difference, but I think when your opponent has got someone who, not as an inspiration to you, but you kind of look up to a certain extent, or you have respect for, it almost, you know that probably gives you a point a set, maybe 2 points a set, because you know that what they're telling the player in the corner makes sense, you know? So you have someone like Alan Cook in your corner, you know that he knows what he's talking about because he's been in that situation. He's been and done it, and you have.
It still depends on the coach, though, doesn't it? You got to trust him.
Yeah, of course.
Like Darius,
of
where you mentioned about Prino, I would see the opposite for someone like how you play. If you suddenly start keeping the ball on the table, you're giving someone who's worse than you a chance to get a result.
Yeah, of course.
While Prino can play like he's got his pimples and he can keep the ball on. While your benefit of beating someone worse than you is he got the serves, you can go a bit harder and mix it up.
Yeah, but Prino's dad always taught him to just keep the ball on the table.
That's what I mean, yeah. So
it worked for Prino because there was a bit more to his game than just keeping the ball on the table. Because
even when he was keeping the ball on the table, there's variation.
He was keeping on the ball, but with the pimples and stuff like that, it was there was a deception element to the game as well. It was all right just keeping the ball on the table, but it came back. There was always the positioning and stuff like that. But I think
it was unbelievable.
I think when you turn around and say to someone, "I'll keep the ball on the table," the problem is when you're playing someone that you're expected to be, people generally play better against better players because they've got no stress, they're relaxed, they play. So when you start saying, "I'll just put the ball on the table," you tend to find that when you're just taking it easy like that and not playing your normal game, they lift their game up, and then
what I mean at 9-0, I'm playing against a player worse than me. I'm not going to go for a big backhand flick or a big forehand. Really, as soon as you get on the table, making it a bit ugly.
Yeah, I get that.
They're not used to that kind of level. And I'm playing against Chuan Chi Yun. If he spins up to me, I've got to reloop it because if I don't reloop it, he's sending a bullet past me. So a lot of it is stats. And when I got better in my end of my career, I was just like, I remember Richard Pryor saying to me, "Darius, look, every time you want to play your forehand from your backhand side, but maybe it's open you up. So maybe when it's 9-0, serve to the, you're a lefty, serve to the backhand. So the ball comes to your forehand and once you start with your forehand, for you, it's just like automatic. One, forehand, middle, forehand, backhand, loop it wide. That's done. When I'm serving like to their forehand, they could fade, flick it. They've got so much more options. And so for me, is that like I learned like about more mathematics as I got better. If you can't push it like Paul taught me, that's like at the start of the match, I always push it long because if I push short and it's going high or half long, I'm playing the match thinking that I'm like goalkeeper. If I push it long, if that's not working, then I've got another option to push it short because when you're pushing kind of long nervously, you're playing goalkeeper anyway. And this is what I learned from other good players. And so I started to build my game from just like playing stats. Do you know what I mean? Every time I start with my forehand, I know I'm in the point. Someone pushes my forehand, I'm not going to miss the ball. I'm going to get onto the table. I'm going to spin up there and block it with the back and cross.
Stop setting the bar so high with the chat. You're embarrassing the other guy.
sorry. All right, yeah, I'll shut up.
If you ever played a match where what someone said to you before the match made a massive difference, and do you think that it's important to have someone telling you stuff before you play the match?
Is that a question to me?
No, it's to Darren Blake.
Darren. Oh, sorry.
I can't remember someone just saying something that's sort of made me know I'm going to win the match, but I think having the right coach who you got trust and confidence in makes a big difference. Like if you got a coach that knows your game and you do come off after one set and you've lost, you got confidence they can change stuff up or give you that confidence to play. And there's certain coaches you can do that with, and other coaches you can't. I mean, when you used to coach me, Sky, you used to give me that, which is weird actually, because both our backhands are terrible. But you used to give me confidence to hold my backhand a lot more, because you used to really drill it into me, and you used to say you can let him get in and hold, and I'd be a lot more confident. I can remember that to this day. But that was more because I guess the way you would have done it, and you believed I could do it. So I can't remember someone saying, "Okay, go on that table," and it really made a difference mentally, because that's a long time ago. But I can definitely remember if you got the right person in your corner that gives you the confidence and you believe, that makes a massive difference. And I see it even with my kids now, other sports, where sometimes a coach is saying something and you can say they don't even believe it. If they're going on against a team which they don't think they got a chance in, and he's telling them, "No, you're going to win this game." unless you believe the coach, it's still a struggle, to be honest. I think that's the biggest challenge. And you got certain coaches, like Darius spoke about, certain coaches he just believed and trusted in their corner. And I think that is the most important. It doesn't have to be the best coach technically, but it has to be the best coach who you feel gets you and understands when you're under pressure. They can help you deal with that, and maybe read what's going through your mind as well, and read what's going through the opponent's mind.
Ryan Jenkins, you have played at the top level. Well, some people would dispute that, but let's say that you have. You've coached at the top level. Again, some people would dispute it, but I'm with you, Ryan. Tell us the difference between when you were playing, did a coach help you before you went onto the table? And what's the difference between when you were playing and now when you're coaching and you're trying to give someone advice before they go on the table?
Yeah, Alan Griffiths was fantastic with me in knowing me so well. Worked together all the time because being a national coach, I saw him all the time. So we built up a good relationship. He knew me, worked with me a long time. He would give me advice and clear tactics against a certain opponent. Let's say I was playing Toriola. He'd know tell me what I needed to do. But he'd also say, and this is what I brought into my coaching with my players, that's the game plan. You can't do it all the time. You can, let's say I need to spin to his backhand. You can only do it at certain times because you can't just play in the backhand all the time. A, it's going to be too predictable. And B, you've got to disguise it properly and these sort of things. And I think that's what I say with my young players. If I'm coaching cadets, let's try and get into the middle. Let's try and jam him in the middle as much as we can. But what I found when I started coaching, they try to go to the middle. The opponent would see it too easy. They'd come around and spin it past them, and they'd look at me as if to say, well, you told me to spin there. And it's like, well, it's got to be at the right time. Tactics are fluid. 1 minute going to the wide forehand is great. When they cover that, then you've got to find another opening and another option, and tactics are always fluid in the game plan. That's why coaching during the game is good, because the fluid tactics, you can then change the game plan.
With Alan, it's because I guess you were comfortable and you knew he got you, wasn't it? Because I remember back in the day, there were certain coaches who I was really uncomfortable playing for. And they actually used to make me play worse because I didn't have a good relationship with them. And I used to actually feel unconfident playing when they were in my corner. And I would have preferred Terry or Gareth or whoever in my corner as a friend who knew my game inside out. And I would have preferred them in my corner coaching me than some of the coaches we used to have, which used to really
I've got a story for you guys.
I haven't got anything that used to make me play necessarily, but that used to make a big difference to me, Sky. If I had the wrong coach in my corner, that could lose me a game.
Yeah,
it's all about playing in front of them.
It is. Well, there we are. It's all about relationships. Because I had Stellan Benson coach me once, just a one-off match. I was living in Denmark. He was coaching for Denmark. He coached me. There was no relationship there. He didn't know me. He didn't know how I played. He didn't know what shots I could deliver. Sorry?
The legend, but it's Stellan Benson, by the way.
I know. It's getting coached by a world champion. I lost the match, so he can't be that good. But
But guys, I got a story for you. I remember when I was European Youth year, I was in the semi-final. Liam Pitch was in the semi-final. Paul was in the semi-final. And Gav was in the semi-final. Yeah. There was Cookie.
So who played who then? Who played who?
So I was playing against Shabayev in the semi-finals of junior boys, singles.
Right.
Paul was playing against somebody else in the semi-finals. Liam Pitch was playing somebody, and Gavin was playing
somebody. How old was Liam then?
Got gold and bronze. Liam got bronze, didn't he?
Yeah, I got bronze.
Gav got a gold. Paul got a bronze.
I had Carol Moore coaching me. She'd been my enemy for 15 years. I was just like, are you guys serious? So there was Cookie coaching Liam, I think Steen coaching Gavin, Jai coaching Paul, and Carol coaching me. Is this guys? I'm the second most important player in this team. I've got Carol Moore coaching me. I remember, and I honestly believe I lost that match. I just wasn't there because it's this is not normal.
Yeah.
So
the whole singles
took it personally.
Of course he did. The whole singles, Steen had coached me. Steen had always coached me in the singles because he just kept me relaxed, just kept me cool, didn't tell me, just kept me, knew I had the brain, just let me do what I wanted to do. I had Carol Moore and Carol was just I'm so sorry. It's what do you mean you're sorry? But I believe that when we talk about parents, if I had a parent supporting me there, and my mum or dad was involved in some of that, then it'd be guys, you need to sort this out in the next 5 minutes before my son plays. Yeah. But anyway, I got on with it. I lost, funny enough. But it was a daylight robbery, and I was so pissed off because it's just Liam shouldn't be in the semi-final. He got there luckily, great. But obviously he's from Chesterfield Island Crook, so I got that. But I was just what's going on? You guys,
they're two sort of ones that didn't go well. The biggest surprise I had was Michelle Goodell. because when he was in Nottingham, you didn't see him very often. But at the Commonwealths in Delhi, he coached me, and I actually didn't realise just how much he knew about my game. And for someone who hardly went in the hall, it was brilliant for me. And he got me from the very first point. I think I played Rumgate actually, first round, and he just got me. He said, right, for your game, you need to be stronger, you need to play harder, you need to be quicker around the table, you need to serve and play strong third ball, you need to have quick hands. So you've got quick hands, Gareth, you need to do this. And I was looking at him thinking, I didn't even realise you took 5 minutes out your day to see me.
He was just
he was amazing for me, and that was one of the best I've probably ever played. And I didn't know he was going to coach me. I thought Jar would coach me normally.
He was knowledgeable,
and
he was
unbelievable. But that was a really positive one.
Yeah, he was a bit strange one, Goodell, because his personality was very odd. Probably because he's French, you know, completely different, brought up differently. Because me and him had a few clashes because he threw me out of the England team once. And
really?
You mean his culture was a bit different?
I think you're going to say his culture.
Slightly different culturally, yeah?
Yeah, classy culture. Classy culture. Let's get that straight.
Yeah.
But he was very knowledgeable, and I didn't respect him, to be honest, and that was probably more on a personal note at the time. But once we'd got over the hiccup of obviously me coming back into the team, I worked very hard once I got back into the team to try and prove a point. And I had him in my corner. And actually listening to him, he made a lot of sense.
Excellent.
He was very, very... There's no doubt about it. The guy was a very, very good coach. And there's no surprise that the French were so good. Gatian, Elwar, Sheila.
But we didn't benefit from him in the hall, did we?
No.
All the time that he was there.
He was a performance director.
Yeah.
And it was a shame that he didn't have more input in terms of working with the coaches. And that's one of the things we lose in this country. You know, the really knowledgeable coaches, we don't have that many of them, if I'm being completely honest. But the ones that do, in China, they work as a whole country to make their players better, and that's working on techniques and new techniques, so that everyone can learn from them to get the best out of their clubs and the best out of their players. Everything in England is a competition against one another.
I
like
that. It's all about ego.
I want to ask you boys about the influence of parents, because this is very important. So in table tennis, you've got some parents that want to tell their kids how to play. You've got other parents that sit there and just support. So I want to talk to you all about your experience with the effect your parents had on your table tennis career. Let's start with you, Terence. Did your parents ever tell you how to play?
My dad was not involved in my table tennis career. He never got involved in my table tennis. He was too busy working. My granddad was a table tennis player, not a particularly good one. He played local league level.
Loved it though, didn't he?
He was so passionate about table tennis, so passionate about me playing. Me and him.
Coach you?
No, he never coached me. The good thing about my parents, and I'd say my parents, I mean my granddad and my mum, was that they were just very, very supportive. They never got involved with the politics of table tennis. Sorry?
And did that help you?
Yeah, it just gave me it gave me one less thing to worry about. Because when your parents and things start getting involved, that just causes more aggravation. If you've got a parent that really knows what they're talking about and has a knowledge of the game and really understands it, that's different, because they can help. But when someone's got very little knowledge and then starts to try and tell you how to do something, or interrupts when you've got an actual coach trying to tell you something else, it just causes it confuses you, you know. And there's a lot of people out there that their parents end up cocking up their kids' careers because it's just another problem for them. You know, it becomes another pressure that you're worrying. As a kid, you worry about what your parents do. anyway, you know, like my parents, I would always be embarrassed that they would get drunk and stuff like that, you know. But if you've got a parent who's getting involved in your table tennis and talking about stuff that they really don't know, that would be an issue. And that was one thing I never had to worry about. My mum never got involved. If I did something wrong on the table, she would tell me on the way home if I misbehaved or threw my bat or whatever. And the same for my granddad, but they just let me be, you know, they just let me. And I think that's what a lot of coaches need to work. I think you've got different players, and what the guys were talking about before is very key. You've got to have a coach that understands the player. Some players need a kick up the arse, and some players you can't do that because I was a player that needed a kick up the arse. I didn't mind getting told off and getting a bollocking for doing something wrong. But maybe someone like Gareth, that wasn't the way that he worked. He didn't need that.
Gareth, let's crack on to Gareth. Gareth, tell us about your journey with your parents at tournaments, because they were always there as well. Yeah. Did they coach you? Did they get involved? I know you had an opinion.
Yeah, so similar to Terry, you know, very, very supportive parents. I was very lucky, and my table tennis was first. That came before anything and everything. You know, so from that perspective, I was very lucky. My dad coached me quite a lot, but it's very basic. What he'd say, he'd more tell me about things that would help me. So he wouldn't necessarily say about technical things, wouldn't necessarily even say about tactical things, but he'd tell me when to keep cool. If he felt like I was too static and I was almost too cool, he'll tell me I need to get on my toes. So that advice was really good because he could tell me how to get the best out of playing without contradicting the coach. It gave me confidence. The best example I can use, Max, my oldest, he had a football match a couple of years ago, and it was hilarious. It was a tournament, and all the parents, including me, in that, were saying they're playing against. I can't remember who they're playing against actually, but they were saying, "Come, press the ball, press the ball, press the ball," and every parent was saying the same thing. Yeah, and Max turns around to us all and says, "We've been told not to press it," because basically the coach had told them to allow them to have possession to a certain point in the match, but you got 22 adults telling the exact opposite, and it's a perfect example of actually the coach who said one thing, and parents who think they know something about the game, telling them something completely contradictory, which is only going to confuse them, and it's just not helpful at all. So that's a perfect example. But you know, for me, it's about having supportive parents. I've been very lucky. I think wherever I've coached, I've not really come across too many difficult parents who want to get too involved. When I first started coaching at Kingfisher, there was actually one parent that I was told about, and I just sat him down and spoke to him and said, "Look, you know, for this to work, I'm going to need to be coached, and I'm happy to speak to you after the training, tell him what we're practicing, and so forth." I never had a problem. So I think it's just that communication, letting parents know what we're trying to achieve as a club, or you know, or in sessions, and that generally works. But yeah, you know, I see it at tournaments all the time where parents are saying sometimes not very good information, and you look over to the corner and you see the coach just like.
Darren Blake, you always had Winston around, didn't you? Cordette would make an appearance now and again. But how was that journey with your dad and mum and your family? Your brother played, your sister played. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think they were supportive again. Really travelled around everywhere with me, took me to all the games. My mum was probably a bit more involved in some of the games. My dad was very relaxed personality. But in general, they were good actually. When I think back now and I see what parents are like, yeah, they let the coaches do the coaching. Sometimes they'd have a go at me after, you know, but they wouldn't try and get involved in the match or on the actual tournament day itself or match day for sure. And that makes a massive difference when you look back. My dad was quite a chilled character anyway, so which makes a difference. But like Gareth said, I've seen it like football. It's unbelievable what a parent can do to a kid's development. They can completely ruin a kid's development by saying the opposite of what the coaches are doing, by shouting at the kids, not even their own kids, but other kids on the sideline, and just really contradicting what you're being told by a coach. and they just can't see it. They cannot see it themselves, what they're doing to a kid, and they're really putting them into their shell pretty much. And I guess I don't know how you get parents understanding that. And if they haven't been involved in sport themselves, but even if you have been involved in sport, I've seen people who have been involved themselves and they still can't help themselves. And then afterwards they have a go at the kid and they know it's wrong, but then you see them a month later, they're doing the same thing, But you have to just trust the coach and allow them, because you need that one voice for sure in any sport. And you need to trust that person. But yeah, I was quite lucky.
It's about communication though, isn't it? It's like when you start a kids team up, the best thing to do is to have a conversation with the parents away from the kids, and sit and have that talk with them beforehand, and say, look, this is what we're trying to achieve. Obviously, there's going to be kids that develop quicker than others, but we want to get everyone to improve and become the best player they can. But we can't have that with parents and individuals getting involved into something. If there's something you're not happy about, then we'll speak about it out of the way. But when it comes to the matches, when it comes to training, I do the coaching. I don't want to hear you talking on the side.
But some can't help
exactly
themselves.
what you said. Yeah,
even
no,
when they know even when they know it's wrong, they get so wound up by losing.
Of course, Darren. But
crazy.
It's that communication thing. You need to turn around and say, well, then you need to turn around to them and say, look, you can't come to training or you can't come to the match.
We've had that. I've experienced that as well. Because Blake, what you're saying, you're right. They can't help themselves. In football, they do tell the parents. They do sit them down. But I've actually experienced that where that's happened, Tellboy, where the parents got too involved and the coach actually said, I bet you got a 3-week ban. Because
I just think that you need. I mean, I don't know what I'd be like as a dad.
The problem you've got is table tennis is a bit different because it's individual and it's your own child. The problem with table tennis, I think, is you probably know what ability your kid and talent has, and you get frustrated, just like a kid gets frustrated by them probably not playing to the right results. So that's bad enough. You get to sport, and everyone's got their own agenda. So you got the parent who's got the best kid in the team. All they're interested in is winning because their kid's going to play all the game anyway. And they just want the coach to do what suits their kid. So if one of the weaker kids get puts on to get a bit of game time, they get angry going, why is he putting him on? Yeah. Then you've got the ones who are more about development and more interested in getting game time because they want their kid. So everyone's got their own agenda. That's the difficulty. And you get wound up. You see people on the sideline, their kids getting 20 minutes out of 80-minute game. And you can understand why they're getting wound up, because all they're interested in is their kid enjoying football. So it's difficult.
The journey of Darius Knight, because we've heard the relationship with the parents from Terry, from Darren, from Gareth. Let's listen to Darius Knight, because Darius is with parents a little bit different to you guys. You didn't have your parents coming to games, did you, Darius?
No. I used to get from the age of, 12, all on my own, apart from my coach Gideon. But I think he controlled it quite well because obviously he just, he took control of that. And I think my mum didn't understand anything. She was busy looking after my sister. So what I had to do is when I was winning the competition, I had to come home and put my trophy in the back cupboard and go and clean some dishes because obviously when I came back home, there was a bit of jealousy. So, for me, I just had a lot of decisions on my own. Obviously Gideon was like my father. So, I had a bit of both. I looked up to him as if this is the guy that's given me a life. So whatever he says goes. So it was a bit different. Sometimes he got it right, sometimes he got it wrong. But I know that generally he's like an Alex Ferguson. It was, he wanted the best for you. But
he was a proper coach, wasn't he, Gideon?
It was his way or no way.
Relationship worked between you and him. You saw him as a father figure. Plus, he was an actual coach.
Yeah, look. If you say to a parent that a guy's taking you away in a tournament, making you share a hotel room with him, you think this guy's a bit strange. That's just the reality. But it was me and 3 other boys. We'd have the double bed, he'd have the single bed, just because his dream was to make table tennis champions. That's what he wanted to do. So, there's not many people like him. There's 1 in a million like him. So, and he took over that role of teaching us how to eat, how to behave. Still nothing at tournaments. So we had a great time. If I was honest, it was really fun, difficult, but fun. And obviously for me, my mum didn't. If you ask my mum what's Darius's ranking, she wouldn't have a clue. But for me, that kept me kind of grounded and humble at home. and just got to keep trying to do better. So pardon?
Your parents not being at the tournaments worked for you.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back at it, I wish I did have them or a father to say, come and do your push-ups and do a run and make better decisions. But I know that in the world alone, I can stand on my own. I'm good everywhere I go. So there's pros and cons. I wish as soon as I had someone to just talk to and push me in the morning, push me a little bit more. Keep me calm. That was only for me. But I mean, I think I had the best of what I could have had. Sometimes I come to them with no money, get him be like, you've got no money, what's up with you? Here's 25, here's some food, you know what I mean? Or be five of us, crushing the back seat in the back of his car. But that's what we had to do to make it. So when we played the tournament, we had to get some results. We had to do something.
Table tennis is a tough sport, isn't it? Because it's
brutal. Story. I just keep thinking about Will Smith and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Table tennis is tough with the parents, guy.
I want to go to Ryan Jenkins because he's got to have his opinion on this.
Yeah.
Ryan, did your parents come to the tournament? And what's your experience now of parents at tournaments?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good support. Still get support off them now in terms of my table tennis career because we were all involved. Me, my brother, my son, my niece, my dad. We're all involved in table tennis. My dad still runs a club in Wales. So yeah, big table tennis heritage, lots of support. And it got to a stage where I think about 14, 15, they sent me to Denmark to improve and they spent a lot of money on me. So at that time then I felt obliged, firstly, to give my all in every single session.
Was you aware that they were spending money on you? Did that put pressure on you? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I was aware that they were spending a lot on my career. I didn't want to waste it. So I give as much effort as I could. It was never, if I lost, it was a bit of an atmosphere in the car on the way home. He would tell me his thoughts, but it wasn't, nastiness, or it wasn't, he wasn't going in too hard at me, but he'd say, look, that wasn't good enough today. And you got to improve and you got to improve your attitude. And eventually I got to the stage then, probably what we talked about at the start. I got to the stage where I was owning it. So then every session, I didn't need him there then. So by the time I got 17, 18, he didn't come as much then because I said, I can do it on my own now. You've taught me the values of what I should be doing. So so my mother didn't have that sort of knowledge of, my dad wasn't a knowledgeable coach, but he was supportive and motivating. He kept me going and kept me, and same with my brother. So, but yeah, parents, I understand the parents' point of view because my son played as well. So I've had that parent observation as well of what it's like, and you do feel differently. I felt a lot more nervous watching my son play than me playing myself because I wasn't in control. And I would be thinking, oh Jack, don't play that shot, or Jack, serve short.
Coaching him on the sideline, that's what you were doing.
No, I couldn't. But it was a bit different because I was national coach. I couldn't coach him against another Welsh player. Let's say if he was in the Welsh, I had to let him go and do his thing. So I couldn't coach him domestically because I was the head coach. But I'd be thinking, oh, don't serve long. And, you feel it.
Did he ever get annoyed with you not coaching him?
No, he knew. Obviously, I couldn't. My father would, or my brother could at that time because he wasn't a national coach. But I talked to him a lot in the house about it. And I'd play every shot with him and watch him when he was playing. But I understand there's a lot of investment that families give their son or daughter. So there's a lot of investment, a lot of time because it's tournament after tournament and they're in the hall from 7:30 in the morning till 8 at night all weekend. And it's a big investment of time and effort. So I understand why people get to that stage where they feel they can have a say and an opinion. And everyone's opinion is valid, but it's when it goes over the top and it's a little bit, it goes over the top really. And then they say things like Darren was saying earlier that they don't need to say because they haven't got the knowledge or they haven't.
Well, we know of parents that the kids are scared of what the parents are going to do if they lose. Without mentioning any names and stuff. I remember playing against kids and the kids would start crying or get emotional very close to the end of the game. And as a kid, you don't really think about it too much. You just kind of do what you're going to do. But
a lot of people want instant success. That's what a lot of people want. And
I know, but it's very, very sad, isn't it? That it's sad that you can put. I don't think. If I'm being completely honest, I know I'm quite an aggressive person and quite competitive. but I don't think I would put my kids in that situation. I don't think that I would be one of them parents.
Because you've been at the level. You'd still get emotional.
I just think I understand. For me, it's
get emotional.
If you put your kids in that pressure, under that pressure, you're not doing them any justice.
The difficulty with table tennis is it's so much investment for a parent compared to some other sports. So because of there's not as many people playing it. Once you get to a certain level, you've got to travel all around the country to play tournaments and stuff. Football, you can play football at a good level relatively locally, yeah?
Well, you're talking about investment, you're talking about time.
Time and money, yeah.
Time and money, yeah.
I remember.
You can play academy level and, you're travelling within an hour max to your academy team. And even the furthest matches are still only like an hour and a half drive, and or 2 hours drive max, for a London club, for example.
We would travel up to Bridlington or whatever it may be, and you stay all weekend. Your hotels, food, entries, and equipment is obviously rising all the time.
So that's where the frustration comes when you're taking a kid away all weekend, you expect them to win a tournament, and they lose. And the parents are living their life. A lot of the parents haven't played at a high level.
Because everyone had the impression that I was, I don't know, my parents had a lot of money.
Yeah, no.
We were fortunate. We were fortunate, but my what they don't realise is my dad was working 7 days a week. My dad was paying for my mum, my granddad, and me to travel all over the coast.
Were you where your dad was working 7 days a week for you to go?
No, I didn't. They never spoke about it. They never spoke about money. My parents had never been fussed about money. That whether they had £1 million or whether they had £1 in the bank, they would never talk about it because they're not fussed about money. They never have been. They would give their last penny to some, but that's just how they are.
Guys, big time. In sport in general, and especially smaller sports, that inclusivity level, where everyone gets a bit of a chance to play the sport and access. And like even Darius, you got lucky because you had Gideon, But if you didn't have someone who could take you around, you wouldn't be able to play half the tournaments. And that's
I would have bunked the train. I would have bunked the train and in the buses. Don't you worry, man.
But that's the thing, though. For Darius and Ryan, I think that I'm actually the opposite. What Darius done always amazes me. Listen to that because I was a kind of person. Even if I played till I was 40, 50. That conversation with my dad and him said to say, "Oh, you played really well," would have been important to me. So I wouldn't have been able to play table tennis in Darius's circumstances. But then with Ryan, when he's saying he got to maybe a bit older and he didn't need that investment, time investment or communication with, that would have been quite important to me still to actually play that tournament and have that conversation, probably more with my dad, and him saying, "Oh, you played really well." That would be quite important to me. Max does it now with me. He has a football session. The first thing he says, "How do I do, Dad?" And I'll say, "Oh, you did really, really well," or or you could have done this, and that's quite important to him as well. So I think, so for me,
the generation nowadays though is, I don't know, you guys know better in table tennis, but in other sports, there's still not that many kids nowadays who will just do it themselves. No. The parents have to push them, and back in the day, you would have just turned up like you guys spoke about. You'd just turn up to Kingfisher. Yeah. Turn on the lights and play, between you. You wouldn't need your parents to take you. You would just turn up in the park and play football. 10 kids would just turn up and you play, wouldn't you? Now it's all structured sessions. Now it's all, if like you see, I've seen it in lockdown. If my kids would have just sat and stayed on the Xbox, they would never go out and just go and play a football session by themselves. And it's a real change in mindset.
Because people are becoming more lazy and less independent. That's the issue you have. Everything is given to them on a plate. I won't lie. I'd done anything to play table tennis after. I enjoyed playing table tennis so much. If I had to ride a bike,
they're lazy. They're always that the way they've been brought up and where they've been ingrained.
I just think
a little bit of what we're talking about in the coaching. It's so structured and you're told what to do rather than letting them.
They've got more options.
Yeah, I just think it's like the generation how things have evolved.
I remember I used to love when I used to play. There's only time I was allowed to swear because, I think my mum got it. Someone got it. The parent was like, "Shit, he's messed that smash." Shit, you're like, as a young age, I think that's the only time. Me just going back, I was the only time I got away with swearing a little bit. At home saying, "No, you can't swear. You can't say shit. You can't say this." When I played a few times, I was allowed to swear.
Guys, we've got to round up now. I've just noticed that Darius Knight is getting more publicity for DK Sports than what Link Sport are getting.
Oh my god!
I know, I'm going to have to get you a shirt. That's to put link for next to the
We're
PK,
going to
yeah?
round up. We're going to
I'm all
round
for it.
on who is the best coach that you've either been coached by or you've known to be a great coach coaching someone else over the past couple of generations.
In the UK, it's got to be UK, otherwise it just gets too complicated.
Okay, so let's start with Darius because I've got a pretty good idea who he's going to say. So
Carol
Darius,
Moore.
who do you
Carol
think is
Moore.
the best coach of the past couple of generations?
Carol Moore. It's done.
Why?
Carol Moore.
You said she.
You just said she lost you the European Junior Championships, mate.
That's because she was my enemy at the time, you know. She coached Danny and Paul, you know. I was against her, but no, as in like in terms of just making plays consistently over a certain amount of time that I know from me playing, and even now, you know, Joe Cope, you know, all these guys, she just consistently has decent plays, good technique. You know, I think she's great, and I think just for a woman, not that I love women, you know, but just that like she really holds her weight and she keeps quiet. She just gets on. I think there's something special in Middlesbrough, you know.
Yeah, she's
Well,
great.
that's a very interesting one. Let's go to Ryan Jenkins. Ryan, who's your best coach of the past couple of generations?
Alan Griffiths produced a lot of good Welsh players to play at the Commonwealth Games and even beyond. You know, second Bundesliga, Pro A, and these sort of leagues. And he changed the sort of mindset of Welsh athletes that you can compete on a higher level than we were. I know they did previously in the 70s and things, they would play at a certain level, but in the turn of the millennium, we were hitting some good results. So he had a good
Gareth
environment.
Hands down, Jaye for me. Taking plays from good national players.
Coach. He's national coach. We know that Jaye is the best coach.
Take plays
we know
from
that
national.
He's the best.
Yeah, it's a different level for me.
Yeah, but we know that, Gareth.
That's my answer. That's why it's my answer. Everyone knows it. The job done.
Yeah,
No, but he's national
I'm going to
coach.
say the same.
He's
Yeah, but
national
we've had
coach.
a lot of national coaches there.
You said who?
I'm talking about English.
You've had how many national coaches? You just mentioned a national coach. He was coaching the European Junior Championships.
Yeah,
Who's that?
exactly.
Carol Moore.
She just
You
done for
can't just
one
say
time,
he was
one
a
tournament.
national
It's one
coach.
tournament. She wasn't national coach.
She was an England team coach when we and Terry were playing,
Right,
Yeah,
she was.
he
Was she?
and Blakey, and
All right,
Jenkins.
fine then. Okay, maybe I misinterpreted the question. We know the best is Jaye. We know that. Okay, but fine.
For me, you asking me?
Yeah, you.
I think you right, so you have different coaches for different areas in your life. As a child, Jimmy Stokes is very, very good for me. But I think as the best coach in the UK and probably for technique-wise and for training, Jaye hands down. I think Jaye. I think
It's the truth, though, Darius.
I think.
But I know that. I've been coached by them
Yeah,
guys.
You should have said it.
Jaye,
You should have
No,
said it.
I didn't understand the question.
think
Sky,
Jaye-
can you be more clear?
as a
So
coach,
So are you changing your answer, Darius?
as a coach for
Of course
a
I'd say
young
Jaye.
kid, say anywhere from 8 till 16, 17, I guarantee you, if you got Jaye coaching them, they'll become top players.
I think next episode we have to do this question again because there's different levels. There's coaching for beginners, middle level, and then world class level.
Yeah, for me, I thought of mine was Jaye for sure, and I had a lot of coaches. I guess because Jaye's not English. If I think of all the England coaches, we had a lot. We had Michelle, we had Steen, we had lots of coaches, Cookie, but Jaye for me was the best technically for sure. And the way he just got you training. I mean, to be honest, you guys know better, but I would imagine there's loads of people who don't even know Jaye's level, you know, as a coach.
Yeah,
I don't know much about him.
Yeah.
So are people getting enough of how he coaches out there into the low? You know, how many times does Jaye going around and coach other
The scary
coaches?
thing is,
guys know better than me.
there's probably 1,000 Jayes in China. That's the scary thing, you know, and that's why they're the best.
But
You know,
Jaye was the
Jaye-
best technically, but he wasn't the
but
best
what I'm saying
tactically.
is,
He wasn't the best
Jaye
tactically, was he?
Jaye was the best technically. He couldn't express himself
Yeah.
language-wise. That was the barrier between. But technically, we've had one Chinese coach in this country, and 3 on this panel, including Darius, excluding Carol Moore, have said, and Darren, 4, have said Jaye is the best coach.
But has he coached coaches? Like, has he done sessions?
I don't like him.
No. But that's the problem. That's what I'm saying to you. That's why I said earlier on in the show, the Chinese are so good because they work as a team with the coaches. When I said there's 1,000 coaches like Jai in China, there's probably 10,000. I'm just giving you an example. They all work. They all sing from the same song sheet. Jai, it's not a coincidence that we've had one. Hymn sheet. We've had one Chinese. It's not a coincidence we've had one Chinese coach. In this country in the last 30 years, and and we all agree that he's the best. That's not
at a young age for me. It was at a young age. It was Mike Panton for sure. He used to get players to an unbelievable level up to about 11, 12. He was actually Chinese.
Chinese also.
He would get you to an unbelievable level up to 11, but then he just couldn't. He just didn't take you on after that. He just literally.
No, but that's what I said before. You have coaches for different. Yeah. Jim Stokes always said to me, I will be able to get you to a certain level, and then you'll have someone else who will push you on.
He's honest, though, a lot of coaches
if Jai could have spoke English properly, I think.
You know what though, right? It's funny. The probably the best coaches. It's not all about them. It's about the players.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the best coaches. Right. They just say, "I'm the best. I can get players here. I can get players there." Hang on, just let your players do the talking, rather than you do the talking as coach. You think you're everything and you've done nothing.
Bang on.
And the only thing I guess you guys know better than me now. You last one, Scott. Sorry, you guys will know better than me now, but because I haven't been involved. But has Jai brought any other good coaches who he can pass on to? Does he still do all the multi-balls, or has he taught 10 people who can do multi-balls the same level as him? That's where he taught
us how to do multi-ball as a players. He taught us how to feed each other.
Has he taught anyone to take over his mantle? In other words, which is maybe what he's doing.
So Blakey, Jai's at our club. Yeah, Jai's at our club. So what I do with Jai is I get him to lead on the philosophy. Yeah. And us as coaches learn from Jai. So obviously, his team is at Archway at the moment, so other coaches won't get the benefit. Outside Archway won't get the benefit of his work. The difficulty of someone like Jai is just spreading yourself too thin, isn't it? Like, I'm sure he would take the time and help other coaches, but how much can you do? If how many coaches can you see? How often can you see them?
What about you, Sky? Who's your best coach?
You see, there's always one person that's not selfish.
That's my next question.
That's himself.
Thinking about
better be Jai.
You know what? It was funny. I had a lot of coaches, but there was a Chinese coach for coaching me in Holland, and he was so good that I actually flew out to China to work with him. But I always think about those changing moments where a coach said something to you that surprised you, because coaches seldom tell you anything that surprises you. You sort of expect a general thing that coaches say to you. And I remember a guy called Dave Farrow was playing.
Yeah, Dave Farrow coached me a lot growing up. Yeah.
We was playing.
Coaching, isn't he?
Coaching in Scotland.
We was playing European League, and he was coaching me. And then I was just expecting him to say the same thing everyone says to me. And then he said to me, right. And he went, bam, 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 bam. And I was just in shock looking at him, because he actually got into my psyche. And this is the one thing that really gives players a marginal edge, a marginal gain. When you look at a coach and you look at that coach and you think, that coach knows me. They're not just saying something from a book. That is what sets people up to climb mountains, is when you've got someone in your corner, but you don't have to put a front on, you don't have to put a mask on, you don't have to make out you're something that you're not. So you're looking and you're going, when I'm insecure, when I'm feeling good, when I'm feeling bad, know me. And it was funny, but Dave Farrow said something to me that
he's a good coach, Dave.
This guy doesn't know me, and yet he said something, and so that's why that was a big moment. And on that note, I'm going to bring it to a conclusion, because otherwise we'll be going on for hours. Thank you. Boy, Darren Knight is already moving to get out the house. Gareth Herbert, Brian Jenkins, Terence Young, Darren Blake. Thank you for watching. Tune in again for another episode of The Void. Thank you for watching. Good night.
See you later, guys.
Guys.
See you later, guys.
With Link Sports. Link, share, play.